Hi, guys, it's Miss Laura, and I am going to go through number 7 through 14 of your quiz with you. I apologize for my other videos not working. So here's what I'm going to start off doing. I'm going to start off by reading these two excerpts. This first this first passage is called A 14th Colony with a question mark. And then the second one is Why Canada Did Not Revolt. So to start off just with informational text, you always want to look at those titles and subtitles because it gives you an idea of what you're going to be reading about. And then like when you answer the questions here, you can simply, when you read them, know which area to find those in based off of the titles. So it's supposed to be a little bit of a help thing for you too. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. I am obviously, you're going to be able to follow along with me on your end, and you can pause your video at any time to answer the questions. So let's go ahead and get started. If we need to refer back to these, you will do that in the following questions. A 14th colony, paragraph 1. 13 colonies fought for independence in the American Revolution. That was in America, guys. 13 original colonies. They would become the 13th original states. But some patriots, those are Americans that were living in those colonies, dreamed of 14 states instead. Think how different the United States would be if it extended north into Canada. Britain had 20 colonies in North America, not just the 13 that broke away, because British had control at the time. 2 British colonies to the south, which was East and West Florida, and then 5 to the north did not join the fight for independence. So of the 5 to the north in what now is Canada, the most important was Quebec along the St. Lawrence River, because the Americans hoped that Quebec would join them in their fight for freedom. Okay, let's look at British Canada. So Britain captured Quebec from France in the French and Indian War. The French colonists in Canada were now a conquered people with a different language and culture from their new rulers. As problems began to grow in the 13 colonies, the American colonists saw that they had a lot in common with the people of Quebec. Both of them were upset with the British. Hoping to prevent trouble in Canada, in 1774, the British passed the Quebec Act. It promised the French majority the right to use their language and practice their Catholic religion. The law expanded Quebec south of the Great Lakes all the way to the Ohio River. Still, most people in Quebec must have felt that they were being occupied by a foreign power. Booklets and battles. In the fall of 1775, George Washington sent an army north to fight the British in Quebec. The troops carried booklets to hand out to the Canadians. The booklets invited Canadians to join the fight in freedom. It was for them. They were inviting the Canadians to join with America to fight for freedom from the Brits, saying that the army came not to plunder, which means rob, but to protect. The Americans who took control of Montreal in November promised free self-government, property rights, and religious freedom. Some English-speaking Canadians were attracted to the American side, and the French Canadians were divided. The Patriot Army went on to attack Quebec City on December 31, 1775. British seamen stationed at Quebec for the winter fought back. The weather was bitterly cold, and after heavy fighting in the snowstorm, the Americans had to retreat. Ben Franklin and 3 other Americans arrived in Montreal in April 1776. They tried to persuade the Canadians to join the revolution. Although some people in Montreal understood their cause, the talks were unfortunately not a success. British ships sailed up the Lawrence River that spring. The American troops withdrew. A wonderful opportunity to create a larger new nation was lost. So here is a map. This helps with some of the understanding. So, you can always look at this and go back. You can see the 13 colonies are here. You see New York, you see Boston. Then over on this side, this is Canada, okay? And here's Montreal, the St. Lawrence River. Here's Quebec City. So when they were talking about some of these, like when George Washington sent an army north to fight the British in Quebec, the troops carried those booklets to hand out to Canadians. You can see here they went to attack Quebec City. So they were quite a ways up here. And there was some British seamen there. And it just said that 3 other Americans arrived into Montreal. They tried to persuade the Canadians to join in the revolution. So these are really helpful because helps you understand or at least picture or imagine or try to think back of how they may have traveled and why was it important that they were along the St. Lawrence River. Well, we're going to learn about that in the next article. So stick with me there. Loyalists moved north. Some people in the 13 colonies did not want to end British rule. After the United States won its independence, many of these loyalists moved up into Canada. They made sure that Canada would stay part of the British Empire. So you're going to come over here. You're going to place these events from a 14th colony in order in which they occurred. This area is you're going to be highlighting. So you're going to review the excerpt from a 14th colony, select the 2 sentences that describe how the French Canadian views of the British may be similar to American. So I want you to think about like if you are doing a compare and contrast. How are they the same? How are Canadians and Americans the same? And how might the Canadians and Americans be different? So I want you to read through these 2. You can click on the sentence that you think is the best, pick 2 that you think are the best that show that French Canadians and Americans' views on the Britons or on the Brits were similar. Okay, and then click next. Up here, it says which sentence from a 14th colony best shows how the Americans tried to persuade the Canadians. So how did they persuade those Canadians? I will give you a hint. It was down in this area under booklets and battles. So if you need to go back and reread that section, that's where the answer is going to be. And so then you can pick the best answer here and click next. This one has a part A and it has a part B. So it says, read this sentence from paragraph 2 of why Canada did not revolt. And then this one says, which best from the text would support that answer. So we need to read why Canada did not revolt. So we are hoping for a 14th colony. We know that the Americans really wanted those Canadians to help them out to break free from the rule of the British. And when they didn't help them out, some of the people that even lived down in the colonies ended up moving up to Canada. They were loyal to the Brits. They wanted to keep the British Empire under control, so they ended up moving to Canada. Well, the title of this tells me right away that I'm going to learn why Canada did not help out the Americans. Why they did not revolt, right? Canadians had good reason not to join the American Revolution. They had a different history, a different language, and a different culture from the 13 colonies. Because remember, they were French. While the Americans encouraged Quebec to throw off British rule, the Canadians saw matters differently. Freedom or tyranny. Trying to get Quebec to join their revolt, the Americans said they were fighting for freedom from British tyranny. For the French Canadians, though, being dominated by English-speaking North Americans would be no better than being ruled by the British king far away. It might even be worse. The Americans had fought on the British side in the French and Indian War. The Canadians had little trust in their neighbors to the south. Think about that. Reread it if you need to for comprehension. Views of the Quebec Act. Americans protested the Quebec Act as an example of British tyranny. It gave away land along the Ohio River where some of the colonists wanted to settle, but the Quebec Act was good for the Canadians. It let them keep their language and their religion, and it allowed them to continue the fur trade between the Great Lakes and the Ohio River. Take sides or stay out. While American forces fought British forces, for control of Canada. Most French Canadians preferred to watch them from a distance. They did not particularly like British rule. Nevertheless, they did not believe that joining the rebels would benefit them. By deciding to stay neutral, they allowed the British to stay. For the Americans were not strong enough to take Quebec without their help. Without a fight, they got the result that was best for Canada. So now you need to answer these questions. Trying to get Quebec to join their revolt, the Americans said they were fighting for freedom from British tyranny. What is the meaning of the word revolt? A large group of people, an uprising against something or someone, a meeting to work things out, or an act of staying fair in a situation. Which sentence from the text best supports why you picked this answer? What made you think, or what was the reason why using clues, context clues, which context clues helped you know that revolt meant whatever it is you picked? They had a different history, language, and culture from the 13th colonies. The Canadians had little trust in their neighbors to the south. It gave away land along the Ohio River where some of the colonists wanted to settle, or nevertheless, they did not believe that joining the rebels would benefit them. Click next. Here you're going to pick a statement about the Quebec Act that's supported in both of these texts. So the Quebec Act was mentioned in both of these texts, and I will tell you where it's at. This one is under British Canada, paragraph 4, where it talks about the Brits tried to pass that Quebec Act because they were trying to be helpful to the Canadians to make them pretty much like them and say, oh, okay, we'll let these British people rule us. It's not so bad because they're still giving us what we want. So it starts right there. It talks about that. So you might want to go back and reread. And then in the other text, if we look at this, views of the Quebec Act. So this is where you'll find the answer. So you should read paragraph 4 of the 14th colony, then go over here and read this paragraph on why Canada did not revolt. So which statement about the Quebec Act is supported in both? What did they both say? It was passed by the British to prevent trouble in Canada. It let the Canadians use their language and follow their religion. It increased the anger of the colonists toward the British government, or it took land from American settlement for use by French fur traders. Question number 13. Which sentence from a 14th colony best shows that the author wishes Quebec would have joined the American colonies? Read through these, select the best one, and click next. Question number 14. This is where you're putting, you're going to drag and drop some of these into these two boxes. This one is examples of chronological order. So you want to look for like transition words. This one is comparing and contrasting. So as you read, we'll do this together. While American forces fought British forces for control of Canada, most of the French Canadians preferred to watch from a distance. So this is comparing Americans and French Canadians. So American forces were fighting. The French Canadians were hanging out saying, no thanks. After the United States won its independence, many of the loyalists moved to Canada. Well, here is a chronological order word, after. It's telling you when it happened. It happened after the United States won its independence. So this would be an example of chronological order. British ships sailed up the St. Lawrence River that spring, and the American troops withdrew. I would say that's chronological order. And then while the Americans encouraged Quebec to throw off the British rule, the Canadians saw matters very differently. Again, this is comparing the Americans and the Canadians. So compare and contrast. Put those in the correct spot and click next. And we are on to number 15. This is up to you. 5 to 8 complete sentences using proper capitalization. Please explain how the information in these two texts is organized differently, because they are. You can look at this one. This is a lot. This has a lot more going on. That might be something to mention. And you're supposed to use the details from the text to help support your answer or your explanation. So look at them both, come up with at least 3 ways that they're different. And I would like you to have at least 5 sentences, 5 complete sentences. So start it off by saying, some of the information in the 2 texts is organized differently because, and that's where you'll write. You'll have 3 to 5 complete sentences. Once you are done with that, you can go ahead and submit your test for grading. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.